Hello lovely people, my name's Stephen Kolber. I'm a teacher of English and English language in Melbourne. What I'm really excited about talking to you about today is the idea of memory technique. So it's occurred to me that as teachers what we ask our students to do more often than not is to memorise things. And then we fail to give them any really effective strategies except maybe a little session by an outside company to talk about study skills and those sort of things. So what I'm trying to put forward here is that basically I think all teachers should be memory masters. So I'm in the process of trying to upskill in that respect. Broadly speaking, there's 5 different styles of memory techniques: linguistic, spatial. What we're going to talk about today is physical. I won't take you through all 5, but essentially if I said to you, what memorisation strategies do you use? I can almost guarantee most of them will be linguistic or written, so it'll be acronyms, mnemonics, getting students to write things out, maybe do some highlighting, some rereading, those sort of things. Some of those we know aren't as effective as others. But what we're going to talk about today is a very simple physical strategy. But before we do that, obviously, the question has to be, what are we memorising? So if you think about your course content, you don't want anything so short that it's easy to memorise. Never eat soggy Weet-Bix, an acronym works perfectly fine for that. I'm sure all of us know that already. So that's the kind of thing that's too short and too easy to sort of manage. So we don't need anything more complicated than a mnemonic for that. For me personally, as an English language teacher, there's 13 concepts that we look at. That is quite a long list. That's a lot of dot points on the list, and they're all grouped in different ways, and they're all sequentially important to remember in that way. So you probably don't want to be looking at, a table of elements. There's probably too many concepts, though technically these methods would work for that as well. But you're looking for something that, mnemonics don't work for, acronyms don't work for. It's a little bit too long, a little bit too difficult to work with. So what you're going to do is essentially this very modern, very ancient technique applied in a very modern way. So basically you're going to be getting your students to run a TikTok style dance for the concepts that you are teaching. So you're going to come up with physical, actual manifestations and representations of things. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to look up the concepts. You're going to develop your list, of course. Once you've developed your list, you're going to look at it in a way. First, you're going to go to Auslan, so that's the Australian Sign Language language. And what you're going to do is you're going to see if there's any existing symbols, because if we're trying to make up of an actual visual or physical language, we're going to start with the one that already exists. So if nothing comes up, then it's up to you to make a connection or a link between what you're doing. So for a small example, in English language we talk about social distance. So this is a pretty easy one. You probably want to be doing something like that, something that makes sense to you. And the important point here is that you're not teaching your students a series of gestures or dance moves, if you want to stretch it that way. You're showing them one that you've created, and you're asking your students to make their own links, make their own movements, because as we know, the neural pathways, the things in your brain, the memories that you have are going to be very different to those of your students. So if I say social distance like this because I'm thinking of COVID, and they have their own gesture that they think of for social distance, theirs is going to become much easier to recall and much better, much more clearly embedded in their memory. Okay, so you've got your list of things, and you can get students, give them a big A3 piece of paper, get them to draw it. Ideally you'd actually get them to act it out and to sort of really to embed that into their practice. That would be the best way to do it. But what you're going to do is you've got your list, you've got your own examples, then you go to your students, you get them to plan out, or even, I guess technically they're choreographing a series of motions, and then that's it. You're going to refer back to that multiple times. Ideally you get the students to recreate it, act it out, dance it, depending on how out there you want to be. But the important thing here is your students have produced a series of movements themselves, and that is then, obviously you'll need to build in some time for them to actually act out those things. But this is one easy strategy that students will sort of intuitively understand. Yeah, okay, we're making a dance, or it's a TikTok, or whatever you want to frame it as for your students, and then give them time to actually do that sort of retrieval practice of that in a really powerful way is, of course, something you could do. And last thing, of course, is this is really useful because, as we know, in an examination you can't bring pens well, obviously you bring pens, what a terrible thing to say. You can't bring books, you can't bring notes, except for very small examples, very strange sort of exams, I guess. But they'll always have their body, they'll always have their arms, their legs, their limbs, and ideally also their memory of these series of actions that they've used to memorise a concept or a series of concepts that you've taught them. Cheers, let me know how it goes.